Welcome to the Los Angeles Hispanic Republican Club with your host, the man from the land of Lincoln Heights, that is, David Hernandez, and from the city of San Fernando, Jeffy Girgenti. You heard it right, Hispanic Republicans. Why? Because brown is the new red, Republican red. So listen up and hear what being a Republican is really all about. Faith, family, and free enterprise. It's time to wake up and see how the chorizo is made and smell the menudo. And who knows, you just may be a Republican after all.
Who knows, David?
I think
you
we
could
are.
be a Republican.
Well, it is kind of like the party that ended slavery, that with Susan B. Anthony gave women the right to vote.
There was some lady on Facebook that I saw that said that women shouldn't be able to vote. I think Dawn sent it to me.
Oh, Don didn't say it. She sent it.
No. He sent me I think it was a YouTube video is what it was, about women shouldn't vote.
Well, let's kind of look at the LA County Board of Supervisors.
They're all women and they're all voting.
Yeah, and look at what they're voting on, some of the nonsense. But that being said, speaking...
Wait.
What a great segue, Jeffy.
Yeah, well, hold on a second. Before we get to that segue. So here's the thing. So we had this whole thing, because I have a different segue for you. So we did this whole thing with the Dodgers about the... men dressed as women pretending to be nuns kind of thing, okay? Mm-hmm. And they were honored by the Dodgers. In the meantime, we have a teacher named Kristen McDonald, who is a teacher, and on her private time has a fans-only page, and they fired her.
Where is she a teacher at?
I don't know, because I didn't get that far into it. And where she's a teacher is irrelevant. The fact that she's a teacher and on her off hours has a fans-only account, she lost her job.
Is there a poll involved?
Is there a what?
A poll involved. Depends on a fans page. I mean, you never quite...
Fans only? I don't know. I've never seen a fans only page,
okay,
David. Right. But now
Johnny got it.
You have now jumped out of you've now jumped out of your private closet. We know who you are.
There we are. Okay.
But you know what I mean? It's like, so here you are. You have a teacher who is being fired for her job for having a fans only page. Mm-hmm. In the meantime, we have men dressed with the pasties on with fake breasts in front of children in schools, and they have jobs. And then you have the Dodgers who are taking we're going to honor these people that are men dressed as women pretending to be nuns, and we have a teacher that's fired. So I just want to understand these policies.
If you're looking for fairness, the fair is...
I'm not looking for fairness. I just want to understand the policy.
The fair is in Pomona. That's
I
it.
know. And it's coming up soon. But I just need to know...
No, life is not fair.
It's okay that life's not fair.
Makes no
I just
sense.
need to know what the policies are. Well, their policies are like all over the map.
Well, and speaking of people making policies, Wendy Carrillo, I think she's the author of the bill where if your child wants to transition and you're not affirming what they want to do, the schools can take them out of your home. Also changing the code with regards to child custody, but I just noticed right now, because we haven't talked about Kevin DeLeon in quite a while, but City Council District 14, the 2024 election cycle. I mean, Kevin is not resigning, but I just looked at the list of candidates that have signed up to run for City Council in District 14, and none other than Wendy Carrillo is running for LA City Council. And so is Miguel Santiago, another... Miguel used to be a staffer for Cindy Montanez when she was in the state assembly, and then Miguel went on to the community college board. And but a lot of the things that we've been speaking out against, I mean, he's been supporting. And then a flash from the past, someone that I remember and meeting with a few times, was Nick Pacheco is back and running for city council in District 14. So that's kind of a great race to be looking at. And in City Council District 2, with Paul Kokorian's seat, none other than Kelly Gonez's husband is running for City Council in that seat. And there's talk of a recall of Kelly Gonez for what went on at Satakoy Elementary School. But the fact that Manuel Gonez...
You know what? These recalls, here's the thing. Yeah. They want to recall them. How about if you guys all just get out and vote right the first time, and then we don't have to recall them, because it costs us so much money to recall people, and they don't end up getting recalled.
Well, speaking of the recall of George Gascon, has gone to court because they say that they have a sufficient number of signatures
to
put the recall on the ballot, and that was filed this week, and so there'll be more on that next week. But they're saying they have the signatures, and they're trying to get the court to go ahead and do it.
So let's talk about that for a second. So they had the signatures, yet they said they didn't have the signatures. We had to go to court, and a year later, they've proven that it should be on the ballot. What went wrong?
Well, here's what went wrong. You have people that are in charge.
This is our next guest.
This is Johnny Romero. Welcome, Johnny. Welcome to the conversation.
Yeah. Well, what happens is people that are in charge of these elections, people that are in charge, they, make statements, and they say that we are, you don't have enough. You don't have enough votes, and then you don't have enough ballots, and it doesn't qualify. And then until you actually check on them, and you find out that they lied or they, were dishonest, a lot of times other people are not willing to challenge the prevailing people in power. They're not willing to do that.
In all due respect, I've watched David do it, and it's a ton of work. So I ran in 2020, and David just finally 3 years later got everything straightened out with my account because I'm a Republican. They came after me and they had to research everything and possibly under the sin that we did. And we dotted our I's, crossed our T's, put periods at the end, and capitalized. And, they wanted to slap us with a thousands of dollar fine. And David had to fight to get that fine down to $300 and something. And that takes a tremendous amount of work that you don't get paid for. And I think that's part of the reason why. But my question is, aside from that, how did we get to the fact that the votes weren't counted correctly? That's my big question right there. And I think that's the question that I think a lot of people, and why they don't vote anymore, is because they don't trust the voting process. So David, what do we do about that so that we don't get people, because this is going to discourage people from wanting to vote. Oh, we had to go to court to get Gascon.
Well, there are some people that any excuse will do.
Well, forget the any excuse.
So that they won't get off. The fact is that, it could be a number of reasons. It could be the fact that we had all mail-in votes, and so the system was overwhelmed. You went down when you ran for supervisor. You went down to the county, and you went.
They happened to be counting my race actually when we were there.
And so you went down there, and you saw how they were going through the process. And when you're handling, with the county of Los Angeles, what is it, like 10 million people? I mean, mistakes happen, and also not only mistakes happen, but there are people with a special interest in there. So the fact that the system isn't perfect doesn't mean that people shouldn't vote. Here we just had a special election for City Council District 6, and this is the area around the area where you are, Johnny. That's to replace Nuri Martinez.
Yes.
And so they had the runoff election, and Imelda Padilla is now the City Council member for District 6. Now, of the 118,000 registered voters in Sun Valley, Arleta, Van Nuys, Lake Balboa, Panorama City, parts of North Hollywood, 118,000 registered voters, she won with 8,400 votes.
Wow.
I mean, to sit on the LA City Council?
And you know what, David, let's talk about what the LA City Council is, because right before we came on air, we talked about we have an assembly person who is now going to run for that seat. And I said, really, she's going to give up running for the assembly to be a council person, woman, whatever. And you
Watch
said...
your pronouns.
Yeah, right. Well, I say councilwoman because she's a woman, but, everyone's got to have
What
their
is
own
a
thing.
woman?
Yeah, what is a woman? Well, I can give you the anatomical what a woman is, but I don't think the FCC would like that.
No.
Maybe if I were transgender, they wouldn't mind, but I'm not. So give that, tell our audience what you said to me off air when I said to you, why would she give up her assembly seat to run for city council? Because I don't think people realize the power they have.
Well, the city council, in city of LA, 15 city council members. Each city council member is like their own little mayor of their district. They get paid over $200,000 a year. They have like $1.5 million discretionary budget that they can use on top of their regular city budget. They get to appoint all sorts of different staffers and district directors. They work with public services. I mean, it's a great responsibility. So Wendy Carrillo in the assembly, I mean, here she's got to fly to Sacramento, every week. She probably gets paid about $115,000. She gets per diem, and she's just one of 80. Here, you are the main enchilada in your district, and so it's very, very lucrative. And because the lobbyists basically entice city council members to have add extra terms on their limit, they can serve for 12 years on the city council, and so it's very lucrative. But you know what is happening, and I think that one of the things that that we saw with the event at Dodger Stadium is that we saw individuals coming together that traditionally didn't get along very well.
Right. And I think that was very historic. You know, I think when I started trying to just use common sense when we put this thing together with my 4 partners and we started talking about it, I realized when I got to the planning meeting with LAPD, and I didn't realize how many people were going to be there. There was a total of 17 people on the ground and 3 people on a screen, and it was amazing, you know. And what ended up happening was I found out there was a lot of other people from a lot of the other faiths that were there. And because my name was on the permit, they basically said, you have to go through that man right here. Yeah. So they all started coming to me and talking to me. And I was open. You know, I was open. I understand that part of the enemy's strategy is to divide and conquer. That's part of not only the enemy as far as Satan himself, but also the enemy of some of these other isms that we're fighting right now. Marxism is what we're looking at right now and fighting worldwide, and specifically here in this country. And part of his plan is let's divide everybody up into all these different groups and let's make them fight and hate each other and be upset at each other. That's part of the program. And it's part of the program really when it comes to believers in God, right? Let's divide Christians up and let them fight about little things that they disagree with instead of them focusing on the 85 or 90% that they do agree on, and they have a common enemy.
Well, and we actually had that with I mean, we had the rabbi. He came on the radio the next evening and spoke. After he spoke there.
Yeah, and he did a great job. He did a great job, and I was very pleased. There was a small group of people there that were, very disrespectful to the LGBT group and very disrespectful specifically to Catholic Christians.
I didn't see those people.
Yeah, they were there. I did find them. We went up to them. There was a little bit of tension there, and we realized that this was a group that was not invited by any of our people at all. Right. But they were not on our lot. If they were on lot 13, I would have had them thrown out. They were on the street, and they were, they were sending venom. They were dragging Jesus' name through the mud.
They had their own agenda.
They had their own agenda there, and it was unfortunate. But it was only about 5 or 6 of them. They had a bullhorn though. It was a bullhorn.
I have to say, if you hadn't mentioned it right now, I don't think anyone noticed it. I know it's the first I heard of it, and I was at the event. Yeah, and I was in the back.
Yeah, and I went and we found out one of the people that was there that's running that organization. It's a small little organization of haters. And they claim to be Christians. They drag Jesus' name through the mud, and they hate on specifically, the LGBT group. They hate on them, and then they hate on specifically on Catholic Christians. So they were throwing some vitriol my way, and I was pointing to my security like, "Who's that?" over there. And we finally checked them out. We couldn't do anything. They were on the street. If they were on lot 13, we found out that one of their head guy passed away the very next day, a couple hours later. So,
that's unfortunate.
It's unfortunate.
We don't wish that on anyone.
No.
Well, but you know what I think? Here's the thing. This was a big thing that I got from people about us doing the Dodger thing. First of all, the first thing people were saying, "Why is that a big deal?" And that was the thing. And we talked about this the next day. And the big deal is, if it were your religion, you'd be doing the same thing. And they're like, "Oh, I didn't think about it." I go, "That's the problem, is that you only think about what your belief is and not maybe what other people believe in." The second thing was people thought we were against LGBTQ. And I said, that is not what the problem is. There are plenty of people that are believers in Jesus, believers in Christ, believers in God, that are LGBTQ. That's not what we were against. What we were against, and what we still are against, is that we have people dressing up as nuns and desecrating Jesus on the cross. I mean, that's a problem. You can't dress in any type of attire and then use the cross as a pole.
Yeah,
to dance.
you know,
on.
and
that's
again-
just not what that is.
And it didn't make any difference whether they were gay or straight.
Right. What they were doing was specifically hating on Jesus of Nazareth by pretending to be him, like I said before, you know, him on a cross and having his another apostle come up to him and simulate homosexual activity. It was completely over the top. The thing with the Foxy Mary celebration or the Foxy Mary thing that they had also, they were pretending to dress like the Virgin Mary and jokes that were not even funny. They were complete hatred. And then the pole dancing on Jesus on the cross. The stuff they were doing is the definition of hate, the definition of bigotry. How in the world do the Dodgers, when we read their policy, and anybody with common sense has those policies at their workplace, that you cannot just go out and attack somebody else and discriminate. That's the key word, the buzzword, discriminate them on the basis of, you know, their religion or all these other categories. And this is exactly what this group did. And they were honored.
Well, it's interesting because somebody interviewed one of them a few days later, and I wish I had saved the interview on Instagram.
Yeah.
And what she was saying was that you're desecrating my religion. It's discriminatory. And he's like, you know, that's not right for you to talk to us this way and this. And I'm like, what the? I couldn't understand what it was. So I continued to watch the interview. This is what they should have highlighted in the interview, because the reason they did this and the reason they feel that it's okay for them to do this, and this came right out of the mouths of one of the, what are they called?
They're men, but they call themselves, which we shouldn't even give them the title, but you know,
Whatever
we have to
it is,
identify
whatever
them.
their title is.
The Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence.
Okay. So this individual dressed as a woman looking
Yes.
like a nun had said that, well, you killed us and you've beaten us trans for many, many years, and you know, we have a right to do this. So I thought, okay, so there's the silver lining as to what their reasoning is. They're saying because years ago and for many years you've beaten and tried to kill transgendered people, they had a right to do this. That actually came out of one of the
Yes.
people's. He's representing the group. He's dressed like one of them,
Yes.
saying that's who he is.
Yeah.
So for me, I was like, okay, so that is the reason why they
Your real
think
motivation.
they have a right to do what they've done to Catholicism, because they believe that we, and I'm not sure who the we were that they are talking
Yeah.
about, but they believe that we and anyone that doesn't believe in them had a right to behave this way based on previous things that have been done to them. So if we use that hypothesis,
Yeah.
okay, so does that mean that Jewish people can go out and just start murdering people
Yeah.
because of German descent, because of what was done to them? No, we
Yeah.
can't. We are not allowed to do that. We are
Right.
not. We're supposed to be forgiving. We're supposed to be, you know,
Yeah.
of faith and mind. So that doesn't fly.
Yeah. And, you know, I heard that interview just a couple of days ago. And, you know, what's happening here, David and Jeffy, is that it's not true. They want to be accepted. I think they recognize that, look, if you look at the catechism of the Catholic Church, and they look at the Catholic Christianity as the big monster because they look at Christianity and religion in itself as an enemy, but they look at, well, which is the biggest expression, right?
Yeah.
Of Christianity in the world, and the Catholic Christianity is the big monster, so let's go after them. And you know, they're upset. The Catechism says very quite clearly, you know, that there is. I wish I had it here so I can just quote it. It's very well written, and it basically says that we recognize that homosexuality is a condition that you know, there's a lot of, it's complex. We understand that people, you know, have a same-sex attraction, but bottom line, it says that everybody, regardless of whatever they're struggling with, needs to be respected, loved, and it's very clear. The Catholic Church has been very clear. Whatever you struggle with, whether it's and you're in this community, this LGBT community, you are to be loved and respected and welcomed. And if any of us, whatever we struggle with, if we struggle with a same-sex attraction, it says there that we are called by God's grace to not act upon it. Right?
I mean, just to say a heterosexual who is in a marriage and wants to, and doesn't want to be monogamous. I mean, it's that same thing. Just because you feel like doing it,
that's exactly
doesn't mean you get to do it.
Well, you better send a letter to Blasio because I think he missed that one.
He missed that one, yes. And really, that's what the Catechism has always said. Now, I understand there's people that claim to be followers of Jesus that are bad examples. Like that
well, there's a bad example in everywhere.
Right.
I mean,
in every organization.
Look at. We are fallible. The Bible says we're fallible.
Yes.
We are born fallible.
Sinners,
We are sinners.
Yeah.
We will always be sinners.
Yeah.
And the idea is that when Jesus comes back, we are all supposed to be washed of our sins.
Yes.
And that's and whether you believe that or not, that's entirely up to you.
Yeah.
We're not sitting here saying you got to believe it. We're not telling you have to believe. We're not telling you that it's a fact as far as what we're going to push upon you. And as a result of that, we shouldn't have what you believe and what you want to push upon us. And yet the Dodgers allowed that to go on, and they honored it. They even honored the fact that they could be discriminatory.
So this is where they get the whole martyrs thing. See, when they come to church and they say, I want to act out upon this because this is what I am, and I want to act out upon it, and I want a pat on the back. I want to be hugged and celebrated. A Catholic Christian following Jesus says, I struggle with wanting to be with 3 or 4 women, but I can only be with one. Or I'm a single person. I'm called to be chaste, right? Whatever the calling is individually, whatever Jesus, the teachings are, we try to live up to them with his grace. And they just don't like the teaching. And they say, well, because we feel that we've been rejected. Well, no, we're not rejecting you. Well, you are rejecting me because you're rejecting my activity. Well, no. We're saying you're a sinner. You want to come in. We love you, and we you're welcome. But you cannot practice something and expect to get a pat on the back. If I say, hey, I'm a minor attracted person, right? I want to be.
And if you were heterosexual and attracted to minor girls, that still is not right.
I can't go to church and say, hey, I'm a minor attracted person, so I want to be
it took me a minute to figure out what you meant by that. I was like, what?
It's the new word for pedophilia.
Okay, I was like, what are you talking about?
No, minor attracted person is the new word for pedophilia. See,
another protected class.
Yeah. Give me a break.
So if I was that and you looked at me and I'm saying I want to be with some 13-year-old, you would look at me in horror.
Well, actually, there's a law now in California that says you can be with a 14-year-old if you're within 10 years of their age gap.
That's crazy. That's insane.
But our laws are now pandering to these horrible ideals and values.
Well, this is why we need to push back. Because
well, that's why we did. That's why we were at Dodger Stadium.
That's right. That's why we were at Dodger Stadium.
I have to tell you, I skipped on my farmers markets to do it, and when I went back the following week, people were like, "Oh, where were you? We missed you last week." Because I usually don't miss my markets.
Yeah.
I didn't go Friday, and I'm not going to go this Sunday either. I'm taking some time off. And they were like, I go, hey, are you Catholic? They're like, yeah. I go, I was saving your butt. That's what I was doing. I go, while you were here working, I was taking a stand for you. And they're like, what are you talking about? I go, did you think what the Dodgers did was okay? They go, what are you talking about? I was like, so I had to go through the whole thing. They're like, wow, you took a stand for us? And I'm like, yeah. And we were like 200,000 short. Thank you.
Yeah. You know, when I went over there and I got I started checking out some of the videos from the event, and I looked at people that were in the know. And they said that at the peak, we had about 5,000 that were just around Lot A. I mean, Lot
13.
Lot 13 by Gate A, Lot 13. And then that we had, a lot of those people took a lot of our signs and they went over to Stadium Way and Elysian Park and the other entrance. There were a million of them
out there.
So there was approximately another 2,000 out there. So at the peak,
but the news said we only had a couple hundred.
I know. It's amazing. 7,000. And then usually there's 56,000 is the capacity at Dodger Stadium. It's the largest MLB stadium in the country.
And they were playing San Francisco.
And it's usually a sold-out game.
Is San Francisco the Giants?
Yes, yes. They only had 41,000 enter
Did the
their
Giants
gates.
Win? They should have.
They did.
Thank goodness.
7-5 in overtime.
God was on our side.
In extra innings.
God was on our side.
It was definitely a message that was sent. And so there was 15,000 less people that showed up that day than on a regular day, which means it was a huge win for us. And the fact that they showed
Wait,
up.
the stadium only seats 5,600 people?
56,000.
Oh, I was going to
56,000, yeah.
5,600. Okay.
56,000, and they only had 41,000 enter the gates that day.
That's okay. Those people said, well, like I said when I came in today when we were off air, I go, here's the Catholics. Oh, we're going to take a stand. We're not going to show up. But then 2 weeks later, they're like, yeah, I bought 2 extra tickets for my friends to come. I go, they're about as loyal as a lot of
them,
pride flag.
A lot of them didn't show up because it was upwards of about 49,000 that paid, and there was only 41,000 that actually crossed the gates and entered that night. So
yeah, but they made up for it because the rest of the games they showed up for.
Well, I haven't checked on the other games, but they lost the next day historically more than they'd had in 125 years. They lost 15-0.
The Dodgers did?
Saturday, the day after. They had never lost that bad in 125 years.
Good.
And then they lost on Sunday too, the whole series. So yeah, that was called a sign. It's not a coincidence. It's called a God incidence. It's a message. You messed up, sir. I want an apology from the Dodgers, but I know I won't get an apology from the Dodgers because only people that have character recognize their mistakes and say, you know what, I'm sorry. I made a mistake.
Well, real quick, Johnny, why do you think that Catholics are still going to the Dodger games?
Well, they haven't heard the Hispanic Republican Club. They haven't heard us, and they don't know. They don't know the reality of what's going on. They're in the dark. Many people still. What did the Dodgers do? There's a lot of people that are just so busy with 1.5 jobs or 2.5 jobs, and they're trying to make ends meet because everything is so expensive.
All the more reason they shouldn't be going to a Dodger game.
You're right, and
because the hot dogs are like $20.
They are, and that's what's happening. They just are low information, and they don't know. This is why this program is so important.
Well, Johnny, thank you so much
back.
for coming in. We'll be right back. We're at AM 870 The Answer with David and Jeffy on the Los Angeles Hispanic Republican Club, and see you in a second.
Thank you, guys.
All right, and we're back. That was our good friend Johnny Romero and John, and we also got to meet your brother Jesse there as well.
Yes, you did.
So that was
There's
great.
a light bulb that I want that you guys have in lighting.
Oh yes, yeah. Give me a call. Give me the address, and we'll fix it.
Okay,
right,
you
great.
got it.
Thank you, Johnny.
Right.
Thanks, Johnny.
Now, Jeffy, when during COVID, when parents started observing what their kids were being indoctrinated in schools, you had a lot of people step up, a lot of moms that stepped up and said, "Wait a minute!" They started going to the school board meetings, and some of them actually, then they said, "You know what? If not me, who? I'm going to go ahead and run for office." And addressing all of the challenges that are going on within the classrooms. And so we're going to be joined by Madison Miner, who is on the Orange School Board, and also our friend Mary Barkey, who's on the Orange School Board, and talk about what's going on as a result.
So let's talk about where Orange is. You're talking...
Orange County.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because when you say Orange, I wasn't, I was like, City of Orange?
Naranja. It's Naranja. La Ciudad de Naranja. Welcome, Madison, and welcome, Mary.
Hi, Mari. Hi, Madison. It's Jeffy.
Hello. Hi. Thanks for having me.
So is the Orange School Board, Orange County School Board? What is it?
So Mary can probably answer her side, but this is Madison. I'm on the Orange Unified School District Board of Education, and Mary's on the Orange County School Board.
Okay. I thought they were different. That's why I asked. I wanted clarification.
Okay. Now,
so they're two different school boards.
Right. So, Madison, when were you elected to Orange Unified?
December of 2022.
And what was your motivation for running for school board?
Well, honestly, after going to so many board meetings, thanks to a friend of mine who encouraged me to start getting more involved and be more informed, I would go to these meetings, and I finally, struck up the courage to speak at these meetings. And I remember just feeling like I wasn't even being listened to. The board members that were up there that had the control of the majority would be looking down, would be sketching, whatever it was that they were doing. And I just felt like no matter what we as parents were asking of them, they listened maybe, but they did whatever it was that they felt like doing anyway. And so I guess just being kind of fed up with feeling like I wasn't being listened to was the reason I got involved initially, and decided maybe I'll run.
And so you won your race. You're on the school board. You've been on there, 7 months, 8 months?
What are we in July?
Yeah.
So yeah, I 7 months.
Okay. And in that 7 months, now they're recalling you.
Yes.
So let's talk about why they're recalling you, because it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. But go ahead.
Well, when I campaigned, when I was walking and knocking on doors, Mary was with me actually for a lot of it. She's been an incredible influence on me. I would say to the folks, and I would hear the parents and the grandparents and the aunts and uncles that answer their doors, stress, how they wanted change, up top with the school district. And so when I was elected, the first thing that we did was, we decided to fire our superintendent. And I stand behind that. I think it was the right decision. However, it did cost the school district, it cost money to let someone go. And as much as I didn't want to do that, that's just how it is in school districts. When you fire someone, you pay them a severance package like you would in any organization. So that's the biggest thing that they're saying against or for the recall, is that we, cost the school district a ton of money.
Well, if there are things being taught, if there was a curriculum that's, what we're seeing right now, say at Satakoy Street Elementary School here in North Hollywood, or the Glendale Unified School District. I mean, parents are showing up now in the hundreds at these meetings, and I mean, they've been some pretty national coverage, because parents are standing up and saying, we do not agree with what you're trying to teach our kids or indoctrinate our kids. And many of them are thinking about running, for office, just as you did. And that's why I think it's important that we stand with you, because here, you go ahead and you take that extra step. You go in there. There's obviously a problem. And the individual that's, in charge, the superintendent, well, if it's going to cost money, do you put saving money ahead of the welfare of the children? I don't think so.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that completely. That was my reason as well. She had 2.5 years left on her contract. So what's 2.5 more years of the continued path that she had the school district on, compared to what the price is of your student, of your child's future.
Yeah. Now, Mary, at the county level, have you seen some pushback from parents as well, as far as the curriculum?
Oh, it's unending. I mean, parents are so upset about the curriculum, about districts secretly, socially transgendering children. I mean, parents have had it. They are absolutely had it, and that's why Madison ran. That's why in the next election we're already seeing people throw their hat in. They're ready to run. I work, in addition to being on the county board, I work at the Cal Policy Center, and it's a nonprofit education, and we mentor candidates. So if you have candidates in LA, I'd love to mentor them. Just, refer them to me, or, connect us, because we need to take back these districts. And it's the parents that are going to do it, because we have the vested interest. When you get these other people on the boards who are just supported by the unions and not the community, they are not doing what's best for the children. We saw that during the pandemic. We've seen that time and time again. And there's no better trustee, especially a new trustee, than Madison Miner. She is probably the only person I know that within several months of being on the board, she visited every school in her district. I know people that have been on board for 25 years that have not visited every school in their district. I mean, she's amazing. She knows the community. She knows the schools. She knows what's best for the kids, because she's got a bunch of kids herself, and she's got a lot of skin in the game. So, I think to recall somebody like Madison is just a crime. Or to try. They will not recall her. They will try, but we will not let them.
Now, how can people support Madison? I mean, it's going to take funding. I mean, you're going to have a pushback campaign against it. How do people support the effort?
Madison has a fundraising link. So, Madison, I'm not sure. Maybe she can share that with Barbie, and Barbie can send it to you. But there's clearly a link. Maybe you can put it on your Facebook page.
Yep.
I know I had an event here for her at my home where about 50 people came, and they gave her money. We need people to walk. Because just like a campaign to win an election, we now need a campaign to stop her from being recalled. So what we need is volunteers and money. And I'll let Madison, you can go ahead and share with them. I don't want to take all the time here.
No. I appreciate that. That's right on. It's crazy looking at the top funders for the recall effort against me and seeing who it is and seeing their interests in the district, or lack thereof for that matter. It's been very intense since I got on the board. But I'm so happy to hear that there's other folks that are interested in stepping up, because exactly what Mary was saying. This is happening all over our state, and it's not going away. I think that I've talked to a lot of people who are feeling like, if they just keep their head in the sand, if they just keep their head down, it's their kids are safe, or they've been protecting their children. But I mean, this is a bigger issue than what I initially thought it would be, and I'm learning more and more as I'm involved. But it's crazy.
I have Madison. How many people on your school board are actually quietly agreeing that they're not okay with this agenda? Or are they all seriously okay with this agenda? I mean, I just find it hard to believe that they've got an entire school board, on any school board, that's okay with striptease going on in their elementary schools.
Right. No, when I was elected, I actually flipped the board to be conservative majority, and so that's a big deal, because having more of a conservative majority, that's how we were able to move forward with a new superintendent, which we're still in the search for, and thankfully, I'm in that situation. I know other school board members all across the state, up and down the state, that are not in that same situation, and I can't even imagine what they go through. It would be very frustrating to not be in the majority. No,
especially when you look at what's the ethnic makeup of the district.
So our school district in Orange Unified, Mary's got obviously all of us. She's like the head honcho in this area. But our school district is Orange Unified. We are primarily Hispanic. We have, I think it's 56% Hispanic, and then so that is the majority is Hispanic, and our Hispanic kiddos are being severely disserviced in our school district, and that's something that I've recognized from what Mary was saying, visiting all these schools. For example, I was at one school, and there's kids that are working in 6th grade are working on proper nouns, and I look at that and I think, gosh, that's something that my kindergartner is learning to master. Why are they just now working on this? Well, there's just been a lack of change when it comes to our academic structure and how the kids are being taught, and that's not good enough. And I don't think that's right, that we're doing the same thing over and over, and it's not getting new results.
I think as more parents, and especially I know in the Armenian community, the Korean community, and the Hispanic community, as more and more parents are becoming aware of what has been going on all these years in the classroom. Now, they're looking at somebody with a vested interest, such as yourself, regardless of ethnicity, that's going to stand up for the kids. And if it means, making a hard decision and removing somebody who has been there and this situation has been allowed to continue, well, so be it. It's worth every penny. And, it's, I think the district is very fortunate to have you in that position. And so we know that with our organization, we'll do everything we can to reach out to the Hispanic community in that area, and as well as to let people know, hey, this is what happens when you have a mom that's goes there, gets disrespected, they don't pay attention, and they think that they can't be touched, and all of a sudden, the voters say otherwise, and we're going to be there to protect you. So, rest assured, we're with you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And good luck. We stand behind you so you don't get recalled.
And
Thank you so much.
And then what I'll do is I'll get in touch with Barbie, and then on our website.
She just texted me.
Okay, yeah. On our website, we'll put the link to where people can support you, and then we'll issue a public statement and send it out to the media as well, and especially the Spanish-speaking media.
Absolutely. And thank you guys so much for coming on, Mari and Madison, and we'll keep following up with you. And if you're in the Orange County area, anyone that's in the Orange County area, give Mari and Madison a call or to help them out. Send them $1, $10, $5 so they can fight that recall and we can keep their board together.
Oh, one last thing. Now, Madison, is there a campaign contribution limit for a recall that people can?
I don't believe so. Mary, is that something that you might be aware of? I've never been in a recall, to be honest. So.
I'm not aware of any campaign limit. Did you have a campaign limit in your district, Madison?
No, there was not a campaign limit.
All right, so good to know. So people that want to stand up for the kids, break out that checkbook or go to the site that we put up, and let's make sure that we have a quality administrator still in that seat. So thank you, Madison. And
thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mari.
Thank you so much for having us on.
Absolutely.
Seriously, we really appreciate it.
Okay, have a good evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you. You too.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
And then as we roll into our 8:45 hour, we have our legal eagle,
Jennifer Kennedy.
Capital Watch.
I just saw you.
Hello. Yes, we did. We had a wonderful event this afternoon.
What was your event this afternoon?
It was the San Fernando. Well, don't worry. I hear that FOMO over there. FOMO is fear of missing out. No,
I was working, making money.
I bet you were working hard. You were. It was the San Fernando Valley Patriots meeting, at which I and Brianna Cespedes were speakers.
Oh, nice!
And empowering and informing every possible minute of the day.
Glad I missed it.
You would have loved it. It was riveting.
What was that?
It was riveting and informative.
I get to hear both of you all the time.
And you're lucky.
Chances are I've already heard those speeches.
You probably have. Although there's something always changing, right, with the Capitol Watch. There's something always going on. So here tonight, I know we're ultimately going to talk about the Firefighters for Freedom lawsuit. Was there? Did you want to focus on that, or did you want me to hit what's happening in the Capitol?
Well, I just saw, and I don't know if you're aware of it yet, but Wendy Carrillo has entered the race for L.A. City Council.
Well, isn't this fascinating? I had heard that that's what she had her eye on, and I had the most interesting interaction with Wendy Carrillo just this past week.
Now,
herself.
First of all, what is the bill, the sinister bill that she's pushing?
She's got AB 665.
Okay.
And just to remind our listeners, AB 665 is the bill that will allow random adults to work with a 12-year-old to put that child in a residential shelter or group home, basically remove that child from their parents' custody and put them into the child welfare system into a residential shelter without parental consent or notice. That's the effect of the bill. That's exactly what it's going to allow.
Does she have children?
No, she is childless and probably could not tell us anything about what it's like to not know where your child is and why he or she didn't come home from school that day. Here's the problem with the bill. The only people talking about this effect, the fact that it's going to let little 12-year-olds check themselves into group homes in Hollywood or wherever, the only people who are addressing that are the opponents. If you talk to Wendy Carrillo, this bill is all about, quote, providing access to mental health care for low-income children. And that's the only way she talks about it. She never accepts the fact that her bill involves minor consent to residential shelter. And I used to wonder if Wendy Carrillo just didn't know. In fact, maybe she hadn't even written her own bill, because in the hearing of this bill a couple of weeks ago, she kept deferring to someone else. This other attorney was a witness, but is essentially an unelected person. She had this person talking about the specifics of the bill. She never once could talk about how it operated. And I used to think, does she even know? And I think now she does know. exactly what she's doing. She knows exactly what she's hiding from the public, because here's why. When I was up in the Capitol on Tuesday the 5th, I was testifying against another bill called AB 1078, which we can talk about later. And after we did that bill, Wendy Carrillo came into the hearing room and she was presenting a different bill. And as she walked out, I thought, oh, perfect time. Her office never answers my calls or provides me information. I'll just ask Wendy herself. So I get her in the hallway with her minder, who's acting like, you know, the Disneyland minders that move Mickey Mouse away when he's had a little too much time. And they're like, oh, no, she's not available. She's not available. And I'm like, well, I just have a question about public policy, about why you are attacking parents' rights and taking out those important guardrails in Family Code 6924. And, oh, she can't talk right now. She really can't talk right now. So I wait patiently by this group. They finish their conversation. And Wendy Carrillo and her minder turn on their heels and begin walking away from me. And so I follow like a little paparazzi. And I say, Wendy, actually, really, I just wanted to know the public policy reason behind taking away these guardrails so that you're going to let little 12-year-olds put themselves in residential shelter. And she turns around and says, I'm not interested in discussing this with you. I'm not going to discuss this with you. So I keep following, and I say, well, this is really important public policy, and your office did say you'd give me the answer. And then she turns around and says, if you don't stop walking behind me, I'm going to have security take you out of this building. That, ladies and gentlemen, is our elected legislator from Echo Park threatening me with removal from the People's Building because I'm asking public policy questions.
So that sounds like somebody we do not want on the LA City Council.
That sounds like someone who's not going to engage with constituents who don't share her opinion.
All right, so I just have a question. How many people want to donate to a campaign against her being elected?
I do.
Well, yeah, you know what? I'm looking at the candidates that have voted, and this were... Stepping into your time.
How many are there?
Well, right
like
now,
22.
No, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's about 8. But an old acquaintance, someone that I met, I haven't seen in a long time. Nick Pacheco is running, has entered that race. So Nick, we met in the past, and I've always had a good. Even though you're a Democrat and I'm a Republican, City Council is a nonpartisan race. So I'm looking at the cast of characters on there, and so I'll follow up with you, Nick. But I think the public needs to know what Wendy Carrillo's policies are, as well as someone else, an old acquaintance, Miguel Santiago, is running. And Miguel he's also an assembly member.
I was going to say, he was the floor jockey on SB 866.
That's
actually.
Right.
That was fascinating. And so now he's not terming out, is he? Or he's just choosing a new
I just think
job?
he just wants to be city council.
He wants to, because this is Kevin De Leon's seat.
Oh,
so Kevin
right.
hasn't signed up yet. So for our listeners, and what was the 866 with Miguel Santiago?
Oh, that was back. That was back with SB 866 was the minor consent to vaccinations, and he was the floor jockey whipping the votes for Scott Wiener. I mean, that was a Scott Wiener bill, and that's the one
that's where
we
when
defeated.
I got Hertzberg
that's
to
the one.
on it.
Thankfully, the grassroots defeated, and they had it up, and we were waiting for a hearing until the very last day of the session, and then they finally announced that morning that nope, it's not even going to the floor because he could not get enough votes.
So you hear that, Nick? So Miguel Santiago, Wendy Carrillo, two authors, and pushing some bills that going after parental rights and the mandatory vaccines. And so we'll follow up with you, Nick, and we'll even have you on the show. Well, I mean, I'm sure
Nick, if you can hear the sound of our voice,
some people know Nick.
Why don't you just text him?
We'll get in touch with him, but we definitely do not want. We want Miguel and we want Wendy's political career to be over.
Yeah, that would be really awful because
not to have their political career over. It would not be awful. It'd be wonderful.
Correct.
It'd be awful if either one of them win or continue on.
We have enough trouble with the city council as it is. We have avowed socialists on one hand. We have the non-working other people, and we have everyone who's not interested in really working with the citizens of Los Angeles. Because we all know the vax mandate is still in place for the city of LA.
Except for our firefighters.
Well, except for it's still in place. That's going to be a great topic. It's still there, right?
I'm just throwing that out there.
Just like
the San Diego, John.
You trying to get my head to pop off my shoulders?
No. The problem is it still exists for all our city employees and it still exists in the LAUSD. And the LAUSD takes its cues from the city. So we got two stupid mandates still in place and being enforced for absolutely
and
no
the vaccines
reason.
are no longer even legal in the U.S.
Well, they're not. Certainly, the original monovalents are no longer authorized at all. Guess what's left? Remember, we have the crazy bivalent, the Omicron Wuhan thing, and the Novavax. Did everybody ever take a Novavax?
No, they removed that Novavax as well, I believe.
That's the one. I thought it was still available, but only for over 18, and that's the one that was modeled on insect DNA. So not a lot of uptake.
Sounds like Jurassic
on that
Park.
one.
What could absolutely go wrong with that?
Absolutely.
Oh, probably the same thing
Ant-Man.
that says we're supposed to be eating bugs instead of real beef, so let's make it in a lab.
Oh, my
But
gosh.
nothing's going to go wrong with that because it's all mRNA.
Anyway. So
Hey,
yes, we'd like to keep Wendy Carrillo off the city council. That would be fantastic.
Well, you know what? Karma.
We'll see if karma comes around.
So I thought it was really interesting, and I can't find the video. I wish I had tagged it on Instagram. But somebody testified in front of Congress that they cannot find one child, not a child, with autism that has not been vaccinated.
Okay, that was Steve Kirsch just recently. And yes, because he looked at the Amish, and in the Amish community,
none of them are vaccinated.
That's right.
And none of them have autism.
No, they don't have, and they don't have the childhood epidemics of disease that are the vaccinated kids do. That makes total sense. They are a fantastic control group.
They're a perfect control group because none of them ever been vaccinated, but they don't have any autism in any of these children. And he goes, we cannot find a child that has never been vaccinated with autism. And I was like, that's dumbfounding. And somehow that video got buried and no one can find it. If that's
I've got it. I can find it.
Well, no, but I'm just saying in general terms, you can't. It's not. You're showing every other video in town, but you can't find that one. And I thought that was remarkable that they even bothered to look at the Amish. Someone was smart enough to look at the Amish and go, hold on, let's take a look at this for a second.
Steve Kirsch is smart.
And they realized that the vaccines are not helping our children. And like you just said, the Amish are that perfect test group because...
Well, and they also found in that when he was
This is John Knox, Firefighter for Freedoms.
How you doing?
Hi, John.
So they
Welcome back for the 300th time.
Thank you. They also found in that when he was doing that study that they could only find one individual in the whole Amish community that had died from COVID. So, when you look at the numbers of the deaths...
And he was probably 900 years old.
Yeah. So, it's really interesting when you look at those facts.
And then, of course, there's the Australian study they just did that said 99% of the people who did die from COVID were the fully vaxxed because Australia.
I thought that was in Australia. I thought that was in Israel.
No, I'm talking Australia. Okay, Australia got COVID late. You know where it is? It's so down to the bottom of the globe and all. They had pre-vaccinated their population, and then COVID hit their shores. So they were also a perfect control group about efficacy of the vaccine. And the studies have shown right by now, 99% of the people who died were fully vaccinated.
And you still have people saying the exact opposite, and I've seen some of them on our Facebook
well, and
feed.
that's the end of our first
shows.
hour. We got to go. We'll be back. Hold on, because we're not.
We'll be
we
right
have
back.
a little bit of great conversation.
Well, and we're going to have to hold it for a couple of minutes
yes.
because we have Randy Economy calling in.
Yeah,
at
we got to go,
9:05.
David. So we are finishing the first hour, going to the second hour. It's David and Jeffy on AM 87 The Answer on Los Angeles Hispanic Republic. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
And we're back, and we're going to take a quick pause from our friend John and Jennifer Kennedy because we have kind of it's a story that could really happen to anybody, identity theft or somebody doing some type of revenge type thing on social media. I mean, how do you respond? And more important, people that know you, how do they respond? It's pretty interesting to see, and it's not pretty. So let's bring on our friend Randy Economy.
How are you?
Hey, Randy, welcome.
David, how are you?
You're on the air live with myself, Jeffy, and we also have John Knox from Firefighters for Freedom in studio and Jennifer Kennedy from our attorney from Capitol Watch.
So, Randy,
everybody,
somebody decided to be you and do nasty, mean things.
I don't know if that's possible, but I'll play the game for the next half hour.
Okay, so how did explain to our listeners what happened and what were the ramifications?
You know what, David? I was given the opportunity of a lifetime 2 years ago when Orrin Heatley and Mike Netter drove to my house here in the Coachella Valley and said, we're thinking about starting another recall attempt on Governor Newsom. But we really want you to come on board because we really need somebody to help navigate the political waters, so to speak. So I jumped on the opportunity immediately, right then and there. And they brought me on as the senior advisor and the official spokesperson. Well, at the time, we only had about 2 or 3 media outlets who actually did any type of shows or any type of stories on the recall. So we were just really in its infancy. And being a media pro like I am, and like you are, David, and everybody there, sometimes it's easier to get as much free media as you can as opposed to having to go out and buy it for millions and millions of dollars. So once we really started going, I became the official spokesperson, and naturally I would start getting on Fox News and MSNBC and CNN, and before you knew it, I was doing 100 interviews, and then it went to 200 to 500 to 1,000.
Wow.
And then something really dark happened one day, and it was in March. It was about March 7th, probably 6 months before the recall election, and I started getting all of these crazy text messages saying, I'm going to kill you. You're the most horrible person in the world. How can you call this person and that person names online? And what had happened was somebody had stolen my identity. And they had posted a very racially charged, just probably the worst thing you could ever actually write about somebody and something, to a provocateur by the name of Terrence K. Williams. And Terrence K. Williams is an African-American. He's pro-Trump. He's pro-MAGA. He's a stand-up comedian. I had never heard of him at the time. So Terrence had gotten an email from me under my information, and there was a horrible thing in the world, and he reposted it on his social media platforms. Now, Terrence K. Williams has millions and millions of followers. And once his followers saw the fact that I was making these outlandish threats against Terrence K. Williams that were all racially motivated, because Terrence K. Williams is African American, my phone blew up because Terrence K. Williams also published my home phone number and my cell phone.
and of course, Randy. Randy, I have to interrupt 2 seconds. It's Jennifer, the attorney here. So when you're saying I did this, and I know that's in air quotes, right?
Yeah,
we know
that is in air quotes.
Totally in air quotes. You didn't send any of these things.
I didn't.
No.
And that's where this whole thing started. And I was perplexed, and I didn't know what to do, and so I immediately contacted, believe it or not, Orrin Heatley, who was the chairman of the recall campaign, and Orrin says, this is really dark. I don't know how to handle this. And so within hours, this happened like at 10 o'clock at night, so by this time it's 2 in the morning. I'm still getting my phones going off the rails, and so we contacted Eric Early, who was at that time running for Attorney General. And Eric says, oh, my God, Randy, somebody has stolen your identity. And we need to, first of all, we need to get to Terrence K. Williams and try to have him take down that social media post. By that time, there had been 55,000 comments and probably 250,000 reposts. So there was no way you could get the genie back in the bottle. And so it started from there. And then within 48 hours, we had written up a schematic of what happened to me on that one particular social media post that Terrence had put out, unbeknownst to him, and gave it to Mike Hestern, who is the district attorney of Riverside County. And Mike got on the phone with me within minutes, and he says, you're being targeted. And it's not pretty, and you're in danger, and your life's in danger, and your safety's in danger, because I think we've got a psychopath in our hands. And then it started, and it went on and on and on for 9 months.
Wow, that long.
The other people that ended up getting threats under my name included Larry Elder, included Laura Loomer, included at the time Assemblyman Kevin Kiley, and this really is an odd one. The president of Portland Antifa actually got threats under my name. and they were all reposting them over and over again.
Well, that was one was just bait, probably.
Yeah, it was insanity. So, but I think at the end of the day, I realized politics has turned into a blood sport. And if this could happen to me, it's going to happen to anybody here in California. So anyway, after they contacted the FBI because my life was in danger, I couldn't say a word to anybody. I was just business as usual for me, going on TV day after day after day, talking about the recall and what we needed to do and how we needed to get this thing on the ballot. And 2,600 media interviews later, my job was done and the campaign was pretty much done, but they hadn't arrested my stalker yet. So they did 16 search warrants. They had a task force with the FBI, with the California State Highway Patrol, with the California State Capitol Police, the San Bruno Police Department, because they had found out that the person who was doing this came from an IP address after they did a couple of search warrants and got some evidence that it was coming from a computer in San Bruno. And I've never even been to San Bruno.
I've never even heard of San Bruno.
It turned out to be a 39-year-old guy by the name of Henry Evan Kuhn. Never heard of him in my entire life. FBI raided his house, took a whole bunch of evidence, put his brother and sister into another room, and they basically shut the place down and raided the house and took as much electronic information as they could. And they found, obviously, the silver bullet, and those were all of the text messages and emails and social media posts that he had put under my name to all those individuals that I had mentioned earlier with these most horrific threats.
Now, were you ever able to clear your name with those individuals? Did you get apologies from them?
No, I haven't.
Oh.
I'm working on it. It's work in progress. I will tell you, after they arrested him, they only charged him, and this is the thing that I really was upset with. They only charged him with one felony count of false impersonation. That's it.
One.
Nothing about stalking, nothing about putting my life in danger, nothing about anything other than the fact that the law only permitted them to do false impersonation in one count.
One count, not even a count per person he contacted. I mean,
or every single text message and email and social media post that he put out under my name.
Right.
That darn woke
Each one was a separate incident.
Absolutely it was. And I'll never forget, I was having lunch with my mom and a girlfriend of hers, and we were at lunch in a beautiful restaurant here in Rancho Mirage, and I got a phone call from Kevin Kiley in the middle of the gubernatorial campaign because he was running for governor.
And it probably wasn't a friendly call.
And I considered Kevin one of my best friends. And Kevin called me up, and the first thing he says is, "What the hell's wrong with you? What got into you?"
Oh, my.
I said, "I don't know what you're talking about, Kevin." He goes, "Why are you sending me all these sexually explicit and racially motivated text messages through the state Capitol server?"
Well, and that's one of the things I brought up at the beginning before we brought you on the air is how did people who know you, how did they respond? Did they automatically jump to a conclusion that you did it, or were they,
yes.
And that's that could happen to anyone.
Well, but here's the other thing, though. You said something really significant.
At the time, I wasn't doing anything other than doing my job. I was the only employee of the recall campaign. They had one employee. That was it. That was me. Well, everybody else, 250,000 volunteers and one paid employee. So I took my job obviously very seriously, and I worked literally sometimes 24 and 36 hours a day.
Mm-hmm. But Randy, you said something very significant. Kevin Kiley said, "How could you send it through the state Capitol email?" With that in mind, why was it only one felony count? Because it went through a state, federal, or whatever email. How is it
governmental email?
Thank you, a governmental email. How is it that there wasn't more charges on that?
You know what? That's a great question for the FBI and for the district attorney to answer. I do know that Kevin didn't want anything to do with having any of this brought out in public.
Well, I can't imagine
which
why.
Which kind of shocked me because I considered him a really dear friend and an ally. and he did not want to participate in the case because he didn't want to have any negative anything brought upon his campaign for governor and then his subsequent campaign for U.S. Congress. So he didn't want to participate, didn't want to press charges, but by that time he didn't have any say-so in the matter. The crime had already been committed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, here you are wanting to,
and disappointing.
Yeah,
well,
here you are wanting to be a legislator. I mean, I ran for office. I get both sides of that coin.
Yeah, but I don't understand why. I don't understand why Kevin wouldn't have a cause of action. It would be something he would be pressing charges. I can see why the decision to criminally charge is out of his hands, but.
I got a call for one day when Kevin was calling me. He had the chief of police from the state capitol on the phone with him, and he also had a gentleman who was the head of security or the detail with the California Highway Patrol, who has access and helps protect the lives of citizens when they're in Sacramento doing their business. And I'll never forget when the chief of police came on, a wonderful woman. She came in and she says, "I said I didn't do this," and she says, "Of course you didn't." And then I said, "Are you doubting my judgment and what I'm saying?" She goes, "We have all of your emails that you've sent through the Capitol server threatening Assemblyman Kiley. And we want to go after you criminally." And I said, whoa. I'm the victim here. And the lady, you know what she said? "Of course you are." That's what they all say.
Oh, my.
And by that, it was crazy. So then I ended up getting Mike Hestron, who's the district attorney of Riverside County. I got him directly on the phone. I said, "Mike, gosh dang it, it's happened again." Mm-hmm. And he goes, "Oh no." So by this time he had the task force going. I was getting updates constantly from the FBI. And
Randy, what's your relationship with Kevin Kiley now?
I don't have one.
Really? So he doesn't know that this was not true?
I don't know what he knows and what he doesn't know. I'm sure he does know because I'm trying to work with good friends like people like David and every one of you in the studio right now to get the message out. I feel like I've lost a friend in Kevin. I've had zero communication with him in about 16 months. And we used to talk sometimes 3 and 4 and 5 and 10 times a day.
Oh, I would imagine, absolutely, because he was also such a helpful figure during the recall, and I remember him doing his book tours on recall news, and that's so. Randy, this must have been so stressful for you.
I bend over backwards for the guy.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Now it's just like I'm persona non grata.
It's amazing to me that people who trusted you and know you well didn't take a look at this and go, "Where is this coming from?" And I mean. These officers know that this kind of fraud happens all the time, and if they looked at Kevin's records and saw how often you guys emailed or spoke to each other, they had to have some point looked at Kevin and go, "Is there a possibility none of this is true and he's telling the truth?" I mean, I don't know. David's a good friend of mine. I talk to him 2 or 3 times a day. If I started getting hate mail, I'd be like, "Look, I know you're having a bad day, but really?" I mean, I would never call him up and go,
"Yeah, I know you're having a bad day."
Hang on, just one sec. I got my phone right here.
Now, John, if you sent him to me, I'd have to question that.
Kevin.
No, Kevin's
Randy,
not here.
how about Larry Elder? Any response from him?
You know what? I ran into Larry at a reception for Eric Early. I don't know if you were there or not, David, up in the La Hacienda Heights area.
No, I wasn't there.
It was a beautiful event, and Larry came up to me and he was
punched you in the mouth.
Yeah, and I have my personal issues with Mr. Elder during the recall campaign, and I just I'll save that for another conversation, but. The damage that was done to me is irreprehensible.
Well, but
so after the guy, so he was arrested. He got the one felony charge, and then we had to wait because he pled not guilty.
Of course.
He posted a $10,000 bond. He said, "I'm not guilty. I didn't do this." And I'm thinking, how arrogant of a son of a gun does this guy have to be? This Henry Evan Kuhn who had impersonated me. How arrogant does he have to be? You've got every evidence in the world against you.
You have an IPN address.
And, they took his cell phone, they took his computer, they took all of his electronic equipment in a raid. But still, he pled not guilty, and then he went back to court a second time, and he pled not guilty. And then finally, after 16 months, 5 weeks ago, he decided that he was going to go to court with me and plead guilty.
Wow,
so he pled
excellent.
So based on that, though, that now that you have the evidence and he's pled guilty, etc. I mean,
he pled guilty.
Don't
he got so he pled guilty to the one count, and during the whole course of this, I was getting calls from the FBI and some from Mike Hestron and many other people saying, well, Henry's got a little bit of an issue. I said, and what is that? He says, well, he's autistic.
Oh, I'm about to throw up.
And then I said, well, you know what? Okay, what does that have to... Sometimes when you're autistic, you have a super brain when it comes to being able to avert the law when it comes to cyber issues.
Randy, what do you think they meant by telling you that? What were they implying?
Empathy.
I think it was the fact that, just better watch out the fact that this guy's autistic and, he's playing his cards and it's
i.e.
really
keep your mouth shut. We got a felony and move on. Don't say anything because he's going to pull this card and it's going to just be a continued nightmare for you is basically, I think, what they're telling you.
So I go to court that day just 4 weeks ago, and he decides to plead guilty. And I'm sitting there in court with 4 or 5 super dear friends of mine and who were there to support me that day. And he ended up with his attorney, his father, his brother. I don't know who else he had in his gang. But they were there and they said, that they've reached a deal with the defendant on this case. And I literally almost lost my marbles, in that courtroom when they gave me the kindness and courtesy to do my witness statement, my victim statement. And I just happened to tell the judge, I says, this guy's going to walk out of here. You're not even going to give him a slap on the wrist. He's going to walk out of here. And I'm going to have security walk me to my car because I'm getting death threats. And the judge didn't, I wanted to read the most pointed text message that he had sent out that started this whole thing that was laced with every profanity in the world. And I started to read that message that he first put out because I wanted to remind the court and I wanted to remind Mr. Kuhn and his attorney and I wanted to remind the district attorney and the judge especially who was about ready to sentence him just how vile and dangerous of a man this guy is. And I started to read this one message that I've sent you, David, personally, and I know you've gotten it. And the judge threw his hands up and he says, I'm going to caution you, Mr. Economy, not to say those words in my courtroom. And it was the N-word and things like that was attributed to me. And I said, Judge, this is my victim statement. I need to be able to talk to you about this before you make your judgment on his sentence. He says, you don't need to say this because I've already read it. I said, well, I need to repeat it for myself. And he goes, I'm going to caution you not to do that.
Wow.
So much.
And so Randy, what happened?
Nasty. Well, the judge turned out to be appointed by Gavin Newsom to the bench in 2022 after the recall campaign was over. He was of African-American descent, which I don't think has anything to do with it as far as race is concerned, but everything was just adding up and stacked up against me. So the judge did fine him, so they pled him guilty. He got are you ready for this?
Yeah.
A $300 fine.
Did he plead to a misdemeanor, Randy?
Probation. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Hello?
Hello. Our mouths are agape. We're all going, unbelievable.
Hey, pick your mouths up off the table.
Yeah.
It's worse.
The court system.
So he got a $300 fine. He got 2 years. I believe they call it summary probation, that you don't have to show up to a probation officer.
Yeah,
oh
there's
my
nothing
word!
He has to do.
So if you just if you don't do anything bad in 2 years, then you're okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then he also got a court mandated classes for people who have quote unquote emotional issues.
He's got to take a class. Okay. Mm-hmm.
He's got to take a class or something. I don't know. Not even anger management. And then the judge says, well, we're going to also entitle you, Randy, to restitution.
$1.
So it's a dollar amount that I'm going to have to be able to get back from somebody. But, since he's on on Social Security, disability, and welfare.
Right. It'll be blood out of a turnip.
Well, and I think, Randy, the most important thing is getting the word out, and that's why I really look forward to having you on tonight, because this could happen to anybody.
It's got to happen, and we've got to change the laws in California when it comes to these cyber stalking laws, because there's no laws on the book that basically address my situation.
Randy, remind us, what court were you in? Where was this case
I was
in?
in Riverside County Superior Court.
Okay, all right. So we can't blame it on Gascon.
All right. So he ended up pleading guilty. The police found the emails and all the stuff on his thing, and
15 search warrants were issued.
Yeah, and yet you're still having to.
They even went to Laura. They went to Laura Loomer's house because she got threats under my name, and they went to Terrence K. Williams. They interviewed him. I don't know how many times, and Kevin Kiley, they interviewed him, but again, I'm the one who got so beaten up on this, and I mean, you don't sleep good, you don't sleep good at night. Sometimes you don't sleep a good night in the middle of a campaign, right, David?
Yep, and
I know all of you guys believe that, and I only have vision in one eye, and so I was trying to keep one eye open to see who was becoming charging through my front door to do harm to me, and
that was a realistic fear.
And it was a very realistic fear because they literally, when I would go do an interview on Fox News or MSNBC or CNBC, I don't drive because I'm legally blind. I only have a little bit of vision left in my left eye. And so I had to have drivers pick me up. I had to have undercover security with me. It was a nightmare.
So this is really a behind-the-scenes story of what went on and you got it, and you got the recall qualified. So that was
get it qualified, but I worked my behind off until 3 weeks before the election.
Yep.
And still worked hard on.
You know what, Randy? It's an amazing story on every level, and it's a heartbreaking story on all the other levels of friendships. And it's sad to hear that people who know you so well and were so close to you never gave you the benefit of the doubt. And I hope at some point that will change. In the meantime, we have a guest here in studio, excuse me, that we need to get to. And we definitely want to bring you back on as time goes by and follow up with your story. And who knows, maybe at one point. Not over with yet.
No, it's definitely not over with yet.
Oh, no, it's not over, so we definitely want to get back on me. And the next time we have you on, we hope that we can hear that you've straightened out some of these friendships. But in the meantime, we've got to get going because we've got to get to our next guest. But we're wishing you all the best of luck, and we'll still be looking for you on Fox News for the next recall.
Thank you so much. Let's do this.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Randy.
All right.
All right, so that was quite a story.
Yes.
Do you have double authentication on your Facebook, your Instagram?
I'm telling you, that must have been so stressful. Running the recall was stressful enough. That was a 24/7
But I can tell you what
effort.
was really super stressful. And that was what the 3 years have been like for you, Mr. John Knox, with being laid off, not even really laid off.
Indeed.
You still had your job, but you haven't been paid in how many months?
Subject
20
to that,
months.
That
20 months.
LA vaccine mandate we were talking about.
Yeah, so here you are. I got a text message. Oh my gosh, we won on appeal. And I'm like, okay, we got to bring you in. Did you want to come in or call in? I'm coming in. And here you are.
I'll always show up.
I know,
I
but
love you guys.
unless you're sick.
Yeah.
Okay, so give us the great news. I know it's not 100% fabulous news, but great's better than it sucked.
No,
It's excellent news.
It's excellent news.
Okay, so give us
June 21st of this year, 2023, we, our court case for Firefighters for Freedom over the vaccine mandate, privacy issues, constitutionality, that kind of stuff has been batted around in LA Superior Court and been denied and thrown out. We appealed that. And that was in April. And then June 21st of 2023, the court came back with its 82-page ruling here, and it was in our favor. So basically, we won. The city, the appellate court basically ruled in our favor that the lower court, the Superior Court, failed epically. When you read this, it's literally just filled with golden nuggets for anyone in the state of California who is fighting mandates. This is literally a blueprint on what you need to do to knock these mandates down.
Well, and I think that's something like maybe Mike McMahon should look into as well with LAPD.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're hitting to a hard break. We'll be right back. This is Jeffy and David on the Los Angeles Hispanic Republican Club radio show on AM 870, The Answer.
And we're back
back
with John Knox and Jennifer Kennedy and Jeffy Georgenti.
Okay, so talk about this win.
We are back
Tell
with
us about
John
the win.
Knox from Firefighters for Freedom with an amazing win in court recently.
Yeah.
Take it away, John.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's June 21st. We got the
82-page ruling.
82-page ruling, and it's really. I mean, there's a lot of legalese in there, of course, because it comes from the court, and it's awesome that we have
I'm
the
here to
legal
translate.
here.
I am here to translate.
But I've written it. I've read it multiple times, and it's awesome because it really. I mean, it's what's the word I'm looking for? It really validates, the fact that we're not crazy.
Yes.
That we stand on our constitutional right to privacy and the things that we asserted in there, and everyone from the city to the fire department to our union has literally, punched us in the face and said, no, you
and
guys don't have,
gaslit you completely.
100%, And so here it is in writing that says this needs to go back because this was all wrong.
Okay, so what are they going to do now, moving forward?
Wait. We have got to back up. We have got to talk about what happened. Like what John said is really important. The words, this is going to go back. Our listeners need to understand what has happened in this case. And the short story is a lawsuit's filed. The city opposed the lawsuit with what's called a demur. The demur is what we call, it's the so what pleading, right? You come into the action, it's an objection. You come into the action and you say, so what? If every single thing in your complaint is true, who cares? You've written it badly and you have not created causes of action against me. I'm the defendant. It's a badly done complaint. Judge, you got to kick this.
Absolutely.
That's what the city did. The city comes in on a demur, right? So Firefighters for Freedom responds and says, oh no, we pled this thing properly. Because when you draft a complaint, every cause of action has like a recipe for how you properly plead a cause of action or the entire complaint. Those are called elements. And the rule is, if you write it properly, if you allege that recipe and you carefully set forth all those elements, you're done. Your complaint should live because we're supposed to, on a demur, we're supposed to presume that everything you said is true. You're just supposed to take it as fact. But the only time you get to kick it on a demur is if you've done it badly and it does not state a cause of action. So that's what happened here. The city objected. They wanted to come in and say, oh, no, this is so, you didn't plead causes of action against us. You got to let us out. And here's what the judge did. When you look at a demur, when you determine whether this has been pled properly, you got to stick to what we call the four corners of the document. You only look what's there, except if you judicially notice, you take judicial notice of facts. This is a complicated issue, but the deal with judicial notice is the court is allowed to take notice of things like the sun is out every day.
The sky is blue.
Water runs downhill. Ice freezes at 32. Inarguable facts. But what this judge did, this judge took judicial notice of documents provided by the city. And who were they from? The CDC, the FDA. And they were all about like COVID vaccine efficacy and safety. That was error.
Yeah,
and the judge built his denial. He built what we do on a demur is you either sustain it or you overrule it. He sustained these objections. He sustained the demurs and said, "Yep, this case is out because I believe the truth in those documents."
Which was the CDC,
it wasn't FDA,
right? It wasn't.
It was Fauci.
Yeah. But so anyway, so the great thing is that was wrong.
Right.
That judicial notice was wrong. It goes up to the appellate court, and the appellate court says, guys, that judicial notice was wrong. We're going to And the judge sustained these demurs with no leave to amend. What does that mean? That means if you had problems in your complaint, you're typically allowed a lot of discretion to go back and fix it.
But there was nothing to fix. They accepted it as is.
No, meaning the judge decided, there's no way you can cure this. I'm going to sustain these demurs without leave to amend. That's extraordinary.
Doesn't ever happen.
Appellate court said, no, you're wrong. You're wrong on both of those counts.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what he means. It's coming back. It lives, the lawsuit lives, it's going back to the trial court.
And that's the beautiful thing now, I mean, here we sit, right, 2.5 years into this. And I mean, for starters, the city laid out the mandate and said that, right here, this is verbatim, vaccination is the most effective way to prevent transmission, right? And the city must provide a safe, healthy workplace consistent with health public guidance and legal requirements to protect its employees. But there's no legal requirement to protect your employees. And we know one of our arguments originally was that, where's the safety? Where's the efficacy? Where's the studies? Show us the science that's there that say that this is the safest, most effective way to protect that, right? Mm-hmm. And now you're saying that my immune system's broken. There's a lot of flaws in that whole argument. And nothing was ever gotten to be presented in trial in front of a judge, because every single time we stepped foot in there, he denied it for one reason or the other. I mean, at one point he basically laid it out that, we're conspiracy theorists because, we're the type of people that believe in Trump lost the election. It was fraudulent.
The Earth is flat.
This judge had it in for you.
The
That's
moon landing
clear,
is,
right.
he's laid.
Flat
You read all of these things.
You MAGA guy.
Yeah,
Well,
whatever.
and actually, Jeffrey, you and I were at one of those court hearings.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
I think we went to your first one.
Yeah. So, it's just really.
So where does it go
this
now?
is a joint victory.
Yes.
Because we were there.
I know. Yes.
So, we were the first ones to put you on the air, and
I
I
know.
was the one that I planned your first Firefighter for Freedom
Yes.
rally.
Yeah.
Okay, so where does it go now?
So where do you go
So
now?
now, I can't give you all the legal terminology.
But
we don't need.
I can. I'm going to tell you two things.
So it goes back in
back
August.
to the trial court.
Mhm, to the trial court in August, and in front of a judge.
Same judge or
Same.
different judge?
Same judge.
Say judge at this point.
Because the appellate court has now said, Judge, you got it wrong. Okay, I'm sending it back to you to do with it what you're supposed to do, which
Fix
is
it.
not sustain these demurs. Okay, I'm overruling your sustaining. Okay, you got to let this case go forward. A demur seeks to stop the case in its tracks and throw it out. And the appellate judge is saying, nope, this is going forward. So what happens next is the city. Now, I need to know if you're going to amend, if there's any way that they think you're going to have to amend before the city might be required to answer, or are they going to take a second bite at the dismissal apple?
So we have to talk to our attorneys on that. I can't give you a
of course, don't. Yeah, say
definitive
nothing.
answer on
Right.
on what we're doing right now. I can't really lay out our strategy as far as where we're going and how we're going to attack this. But it's definitely slated for August to go back to court. And the beauty of that is that, we're standing in a space where nobody wanted to, and everyone was afraid to. And so we took that stance because, the city doesn't want to go back to court, because now, even if you listen to the appellate hearing, you can watch that. And it lasted 30, 40 minutes, whatever it was. And it's very clear that the city basically stated that they didn't look at the science. It was implied, right, that they did. All they did was look at statements. I mean, that's pretty damning.
Yes.
We've been asking for very specific evidence to show. And now, you've got people that have been coerced over the fear of losing their job to take a shot that they didn't want to, something that is really illegal to enforce because it's still an EUA, right?
Not only that, but because it's just unconstitutional.
Well,
Yeah.
Right.
but now they've got another problem, because it's coming out that the original shots that they mandated, which are in that mandate, are no longer even available.
Right.
Because the CDC now has said that they're not safe. So now they've got a problem, because what happened yesterday is now validated today in what you stood against yesterday.
Absolutely. And so what
now the
this,
city's really screwed.
What this is going to do is, now we get to depose people, right? And we get to call people and we get evidence and we get to show the citizens of Los Angeles that they were gaslighted. And we get to show the American people that you've been lied to from day one.
But how do you get rid of this judge?
You don't. You're stuck with him. The ability existed long ago to do a 170.6, kick the judge, right? You're kind of stuck with him now. I believe, unless there's a way to come in and paper him now and get him off the case and move to a different department. You get to do that once.
Can't you say it's prejudiced at this point?
No.
Biased?
This happens all the time, you guys. This happens all the time where you don't like a ruling, right, in the middle of your case, and you go up on appeal on that particular little ruling. And then you get that satisfied and you come back down to the judge, and he's got orders from the appellate court. I'm scrolling right online looking at the orders right now to see what it is. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Anyway. Okay, the remaining portion of the judgment is reversed. The trial court is directed to vacate its order, sustaining the demurrer without leave to amend. Got it? The trial court is told, you made the wrong call. You cannot sustain this without leave to amend. And blah, 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 blah. Ooh, Firefighters for Freedom recovers your costs on appeal. That's always satisfying.
That's
they get their
very
costs.
You get your money back.
Yes.
How lovely is that?
what
Money
it
to
cost us
fight for another
this,
day.
And so it's really important because, this stands in a place for not only, everyone that's been lied to. Now we're dealing with all of these individuals that have been harmed, right, from these shots and that were lied to. And standing in this place and pushing this forward is going to bring all of this to light, how everyone has literally been lied to and forced under coercion and duress to take something that they didn't want, that was an experiment. And, that's not what we're arguing in this case, but all of that plays into it.
It's all going to come out.
And everything comes out.
In discovery.
I sure hope it does, because what we see now that the appellate court has ordered the trial court to enter a new order overruling the city's objections, that means that's a wash now. Their demurrer is now done and over and dead, and the case moves forward. So the city's decision is going to be, oh my gosh, we have to file an answer now. And when you file an answer and you join that action, then there goes that discovery. And suddenly there's subpoenas and depositions and interrogatories and all kinds of other things.
But taxpayers are paying out big time.
But you know what? They're going to pay because they are going to be put on the spot, just like the city of San Diego was staring in the face when they similarly lost their motions to dismiss. Yeah. So the city has some hard thinking to do here.
And the city attorney, Mike Fuhrer, is running for Congress, that I heard, for Adam Schiff's seat.
Well, because right now there's a new city attorney, Heidi Feldstein Soto, and Mike was still on the case. I always say it's Feuer. Is it Feuer? Mike Feuer? Anyway, it's a German word. It means fire. You see him on this case still, but she's the new city attorney.
Yeah, her and Vivian Swanigan.
Well, and
so this is exciting for the Firefighters for Freedom to discuss.
They may decide to do, because this happened in the case that we dealt with the trash franchise. The same thing happened. The city filed their demurrer, lower court threw it out, and it was basically dead. We were contemplating the appeal. At the same time, the city of Oakland, the exact same circumstances. That case was on appeal, and when it went to the state appellate court, the court did exactly the same thing. They threw out the demurrer and reactivated that. They said Oakland, that case was open, and based on that, the judge here in the lower court in L.A. went ahead and reversed the demurrer, and so the trash franchise case is still going forward.
And this has created ripples across the state, with other fire departments and unions. In Northern California, we've had union attorneys that have been terminated based on this right here. It's really created waves, and now, other unions in Northern California are looking at this like, oh man, we messed up, and now we need to step in.
Where does your union come into play on this?
Well, again, from day one, they've said that we don't have a snowball's chance in a hot place to win anything. Their attorneys say that. They've said it.
But here you are.
Yeah, and here we are. So I'd love to throw it out there. Hey, it'd be a great time for our union to recognize that we are right and we have been right, and put all that aside and stand with your members and come and back us on this.
Do you think they will?
I have no idea.
Never too late to do the right thing.
No, it's not, and so do
I need to call him again?
Union, local Union 112, UFLAC,
Do I need to call that president again?
Hey, you can call
I
him
called
whatever
that.
you want.
Funny story on that is Firefighters for Freedom at 6:00 in the morning posted all the phone numbers for the union board members. So I called the president. And he called me back, and I had a whole conversation with him, and his whole demeanor about the whole thing was, oh, no, we back our firemen, blah, 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 blah. And so I called John, and I go, yeah, I just got off the phone because he called you back. And I go, yeah, this whole conversation. Yeah. Oh, he's lying.
Well, John,
and it turned out that he was lying. So it'd be interesting to see where they're going to, because they're kind of as stuck in the mud as the city is.
Well, because the crazy thing is, John, we got 10 firefighters awaiting their boards of rights
Yes.
hearings.
But what does this do for the ones that have already been terminated?
Well, again, your privacy rights have been violated. From what we're arguing, none of this should have ever happened. We've also argued the fact that the city didn't have the authority to put this in there. Police powers aside, it walks through that argument inside of this as well.
And again, good to know for listeners that this action by the firefighters seeks declaratory relief. We're just going into court to say, Judge, you need to rule that this mandate is wrong. Yeah. They didn't have the authority to do it, and this was a violation of our right to privacy under the California Constitution. That's what it is seeking. So it's still alive, and if this case proceeds, then there's the possibility that ruling will happen.
Well, it's huge,
So here's the thing. So let's say that it does happen. What's the outcome on that? Now each and every person under the mandate that was forced to take the shot or whatever, can they sue? How does that work, Jennifer?
Well, they certainly could, right? Because again, this one looks to strike down the mandate,
right?
So
if it strikes the mandate down in the face of the fire department, does that what does that allow the city firefighters to do from there? Does John get his back pay? Does he get his job back?
It's hard to know. It's hard to know about because there are other administrative things that have to happen and be observed. But I think if you see a lawsuit that strikes the mandate down as unconstitutional, then you look back in history and go, that thing was unconstitutional back then, under which I was terminated. Boom, I'm wrongfully terminated. Absolutely. And I think everyone has a case for wrongful termination. That is not legal advice. That's just my opinion. But yes,
I opened the door and asked a question, and I got a non-legal
But it comes back to when you read the Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, it very, very clearly states in there that all Californians, right? Because we're not going off the federal Constitution. We're going off the California Constitution. Right. And Article 1, Section 1 clearly states that all persons have the right to privacy and body autonomy. And it's lined out very clearly.
I wonder if they're going to change that now after this lawsuit.
Well, that was put in after, Roe versusAde in 74.
Okay, well, that got overturned. They might be changing our Constitution.
But that's at the federal level. This is still a state issue,
although,
right?
As you know, our state right to privacy is greater than the federal. Your claim under a state cause of action is greater than it would be under a federal cause of action.
Absolutely. I mean, we have the strongest Constitution out of all 50 states. And, that right to privacy and bodily autonomy is in there. And the court even recognized it in here.
But see, here's
massively.
the thing, though. They've got if this gets forced that the mandate was unlawful, okay, and they won't change the bodily autonomy, and it's for the very reason that you said, because of Roe versus Wade. We are a state that says now they've passed laws that you can bring kids in from other states and you can change their bodily anatomy, so they'll never change it, which means they've caught themselves in a catch-22.
Right.
The state of California, they're not going to change the Constitution, so they're gonna when you see the scales of the law with the feather and
the scales of justice.
The scales of justice. This is the perfect situation for the scales of justice in California, because you can't, if you try to change the Constitution based on that, that which is huge, and it's going to cost every
they would
department
never
in
do
the
that.
state forever.
And in fact, they could not, because it would have to be the will of the people. And
what I'm saying is, if they even wanted to even go through the will of the people to even try to change it over that mandate, because of the cost that's going to happen to the state and the cities and all that, it's going to be a huge financial loss for everybody. But they wouldn't, because of all the other laws that they've changed that made it so woke of a state. I just I don't know. I think it's an oxymoron on the whole thing. I think it's kind of interesting.
Well, and we definitely want to keep on following this, because it's not going to be resolved very quickly. Still,
no. We made a commitment to it 3 years ago, and you're still here.
Look, I'm not a quitter,
and neither are we, because we still have you here.
One of the things that I'd really like to put out, and we're gonna start a campaign, I think, here is
please donate.
Yes, and that's what we've funded.
It's $1. We don't care. $1.50.
So in the freedom fighting arena, there's a lot of people, and you know what? What we're going to ask is that we're looking for 1 million freedom fighters to donate $1.
Yep.
That's $1 million. And
where do they donate?
They're going to go to Firefighters4freedom.org. And
is that an FOR or a number?
It'll go to both. So Firefighters, the number 4freedom.org or .com, it doesn't matter. You can find us, and then go to our legal and operational donation and donate there. $1 is, if you can donate more, that's fantastic. But we're looking for 1 million people to donate $1. And I don't think that's a stretch, because there's a lot of people out there that really...
Actually, you need 1.1 million, because you're going to have to pay the fees through PayPal.
Yeah.
And you can tell I'm a business owner over here. I'm the business owner. You need 1.1 million.
Whatever. You know what? I'll take 1 million $1 bills. Would be fantastic.
The great thing
we would
is,
love it.
This is not the only litigation, right? There's other litigation against the city right now.
Firefight. What is his?
Mike McMahon and Roll Call for Freedom.
Roll Call for Freedom is another one.
And we just posted the Firefighters for Freedom.
Yeah, Roll Call for Freedom is a friend of ours. He was the very first police officer terminated with LAPD for the mandate, and so he's got Roll Call for the number 4 freedom. Mm-hmm. Is it .org or .com? .com. So if the same million people, 0.1, could donate $1 to each campaign, that's $2 out of your pocket. That's not even a third of the cost of a Starbucks cup of coffee.
Right, that's pushing $10 now.
Mm-hmm. I said, it's not even a third.
Yeah, I know. Mm-hmm. So it's we're not going to stop fighting. This is too important, and it affects too many people. Well,
it's not just people don't realize is this lawsuit that you presented isn't just about the firefighters. It's really going to hit every single business that said you had to be vaccinated.
Absolutely.
It's going to affect every single employer that terminated an employee or refused to hire an employee, because that's the other thing that wasn't vaccinated.
Well, we might have to look it back and see who it's going to hit also, because we're talking about, when we talk about police power, et cetera, we're talking about the government.
The government.
Okay, we're talking about the city, and I'm not sure. I think the arguments are going to be great, but I'm not sure that we can then extrapolate to private employers.
I didn't say
we
private.
Want to.
I didn't say private.
But this will affect. A
lot of small businesses, though. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. A lot of small businesses have contracts with the state, and they were told if their employees were not vaccinated, they could not hire them.
Sure, absolutely.
That's why it's important to have good people in office. And so that's why I want to take the last minute that we have to make an announcement that our very own Jack Guerrero has entered the race for Riverside County Supervisor.
Fantastic.
In the District 3, so that's in the communities of Temecula, Murrieta, Lake Skinner, Diamond Valley, French Valley, Winchester, San Jacinto, Hemet, Idlewild, and Anza. So that's the 3rd supervisory district in Riverside County.
It's a big area.
So he launched his campaign this week. And he has a lot of support from a lot of the grassroots groups, the CRA, the Tea Party groups, and naturally our group. And now tomorrow at 1:30 at the American Legion Post 826 at 5320 Fallbrook Avenue in Woodland Hills, our very own Lucy Valesky is having an event and that's at 1:30. And our own Ellie from the 180 Shift is going to be one of the speakers. Also, Janet Price, the former president of the California Federated Republican Women. John Duffy, a film producer and director. And Moa, I'll be there as well. Give me a couple of words of encouragement. So
and what time is it?
That's 1:30 tomorrow.
Okay. And then real quick, so we have another friend of ours that we've had on many times, Tracy Schroeder, and she said, please do not forget Educators for FOR, medicalfreedom.com. So that's Educators for medicalfreedom.com. So those are the three major ones you've got to do because that had to do with all of our teachers at LAUSD. So thank you so much for listening to the Los Angeles Hispanic Republican Club radio show with Jeffy and David and our legal eagle Jennifer and all of our guests tonight that came on. Sal, who's taking care of all your phone calls, who those of you that called in, our gentleman over in our control booth, Ryan, and John Knox. We had
Johnny
Romero, Randy Economy. We had Mari and Madison that called in. So everyone tune in next Saturday night, and we will talk to you then.
And if you're available on the 12th, that's in Pasadena, the L.A. County Taxpayers Association is having their fundraising event.
Cool.
See you next week.
Bye.